transparency of public debt. Number two is that the securitization of revenues needs to be well thought. Of course, it means our balance sheet as a country, for us to be this innovative, there's something and that needs to be there, because these resources didn't go to the consolidated fund as required by law. And then we should also be very careful as the rest of the Eurobonds mature from 2028 onwards. We have a marathon bullet payments that will fall due around that time, and we need to keep this conversation alive. There is need for Parliament to progressively engage with the quarterly budget implementation reports. We cannot be having a debt conversation at the end of the year when money has been, we have borrowed and we have spent, and no one knows exactly where the money was spent on. It's important for Parliament to ensure that the quarterly budget implementation reports are well assessed. And of course, a very good conversation that has come out to rethink how much we are investing on advancing our national values as a country, because they have a significant impact on how we spend our resources. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's my esteemed pleasure to invite Honorable Ndindi Nyoro to come and give the keynote remarks. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, James, Daniel, and the entire IPF fraternity. The guests who are here before me, as panelists, PS Moya, our former PS for the National Treasury, Dr. Moya, Andrew, Veronica and Ruth, and all the other participants. Good morning. Good morning. I am very pleased to have been invited to this very important event. I am really pleased because there are very few areas in Kenya you can get an organization planning for people just to canvass in regards to policy. And from where I sit, I think policy is much more important than many other things we talk about as politicians, because they end up having ramifications, and they end up having effects, and they end up shaping the livelihoods of the Kenyan people and also their welfare. Even the name, Institute of Public Finance, summarizes some of the questions that we had before, especially the intersection between leadership and politics, and also the economy. Because the finance on the IPF is more on public finance, or public money, which is the economy. And I am glad to be in both, on the leadership side, but also on the economic front. In the politics side, it's easy, because you say things subjectively. You don't need to think too much. Anything can pass. You can say anything, it is subjective, it can be directed to somebody. You don't need any empirical evidence for whatever you say. On the economic front, you can easily embarrass yourself if you go off the facts. Because some of the things we deal with are factual. Many things that are can be numerated, things that can be put in figures, unfortunately. Whatever verbosity you put around it, whatever speech you may put around it, 2 + 2 always is 4. Whatever you describe 4 as, it will end up as 4. So I'm very glad that we are discussing that. And the fact that it shapes the other. Politics shapes the economy, but on the other side also, the economy shapes politics. The more advanced a country becomes, the more aware the people become, and the more uwajibikaji in terms of the politics that is enhanced. And therefore, there is a very thin line, if there is at all. We are in a situation which is very good in terms of global economy. And I've been studying economies over time, and I can confidently say that the global economy now is in summer. is in summer because there is nothing much in terms of the downside that is ongoing in the global economy. And therefore it presents a very good opportunity for every secular economy of the world to take advantage of the summer to do what they need to do. Why do I say so? Currently, in terms of stability, other than the wars that the economies have already factored in, the economies of the world has already factored in what is ongoing in the Middle East. The economies of the world have already factored in what is happening around somewhere near Europe. We've already factored in that as economies. And fortunately, even in terms of supply chains and in terms of planning, that is already there and it has been for years. So we have some stability in regards to the global geopolitics. When you look at the economy globally also, we are now in a sphere and in a path of decimated rating rates in terms of lowering of rating rates across almost all the economies of the world. There is quantitative easing across. The Federal Reserve will be meeting, I think, next week, if not this week. Actually, this week, the Federal Reserve of the US. And whatever that meeting will come up with affects my grandmother's plate in the village, affects many things that we do in our economy. The pity is that there is great expectation that we are likely continue with quantitative easing, will likely continue with expansionary policies in the monetary side in terms of lowering of the lending rates, starting from the Fed rate, CPR rate, and of course, supposed also to go to the private sector, supposed to. So the economies of the world are, we are buoyant. I mean, we have all the ingredients of an economy to grow. All of them are on the table. When you have rates going down, rates go down because private sector wants to be incentivized. And all those are happening now. In Kenya, we have CPR rates going down. Across almost all the economies in Africa and all the other economies of the world, we have that happening. Expansionary policies are now, and especially on the monetary side. The question we need to ask ourselves as Kenyans, as we enjoy the summer in the economic sphere of the world, how is Kenya taking advantage of that? And just use the data. One, we have a CPR rate coming down. Every other meeting, if not sustaining the previous rate, we are climbing down. But who is benefiting from the lowering of the rating rates in Kenya? And when I talk about economics, I like referring to the government data, because the beauty is that we still have some institutions that give credible data, and especially the CBK and the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Now, we have a situation where Kenya is having expansionary monetary policy and lowering of rating rates. But who is benefiting? Because you have on one side lowering of rates, the same government data then shows that the private sector lending is actually going down, not growing. So in Kenya, monetary easing is purely a debt management tool. Purely. That the only parameter that is being eyed in terms of monetary easing and lowering of rates is basically paying less interest in the domestic debt, and therefore what is supposed to happen is not happening, because always rates should go down as a way of incentivizing private sector. But you have rates going down, but in the same breath and from the same source, then we have a report again on the other side showing that the lending to private sector in Kenya is actually shrinking. And therefore that is a very huge cause of alarm, because we must harness whatever is happening globally because it doesn't last for too long. Second thing that we have to be aware of so that we take advantage of what we have now. Economies are always cyclical. Right now, President Trump is almost forcing the Fed that they have to cut the rates. And they will almost, I'm sure they will succumb this week. Now, after that, how is the economy supposed to now behave after that? We have low rates. We will definitely, again, in the next few months, start having a discussion about managing inflation because those go hand in hand together. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we need to harness what we have now as an advantage globally, make a way of making our private sector buoyant and grow so that in a rainy day, we'll have institutions that will support our economy. But when it is sunshine, we still cannot give warmth to the business sector or the private sector because the government is crowding out the private sector from banking, from lending. In our economic, I mean the easiest chapters of economics, we were told one of the roles of government and a central bank is to release money to the people through many tools, including fiscal policy in terms of spending. So we grew up knowing that the work of central bank, in quotes, is to print money, in quotes because it's figurative, and figure out how this money will end up in my pocket. Through many ways, spending, through financial instruments, and the rest. In Kenya, that has reversed. The work of the central bank now and government is actually to mop up money from the private pocket and then give to the government. That is why you see every month we are having fundraisings from government in terms of raising money. And what has that brought now, up to now? Out of those things that I'm talking about, our national debt now has grown to 12 trillion Kenya shillings. Over. It's now, because we borrow every day on average, maybe we are now talking about 12.4 trillion Kenya shillings. I have a figure from the previous times that we talked about debt. And I talked about these figures the other day, which are factual again. And every Kenyan, the beauty about Kenya now is that we may have shortfalls, but at least the Constitution guarantees that we get part of the public information for free when you need it.